Good morning and welcome to ELTea Time, which is our coffee break style advancing learning podcast series, where each episode I will be joined by a guest, an educator from right here in MENA, in the Middle East and North Africa. And we're going to discuss a topic, a contemporary topic of their choosing over a nice cup of tea or coffee. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Najla Bahri. Good morning to you, Najla.
Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's good afternoon for me. It's 2:30 here in Canada.
Yeah.
But for you, it's morning, right?
Yes, it's still 11:30 here, Tunis
Yeah.
time.
Good. Okay, so quick introduction. Najla is a lecturer from the University of Manouba. Is that Manouba? Is that
Yes,
right?
Manuka, yes.
If my memory serves me correctly, that's on the western kind of border of Tunis, right? On the outskirts.
Exactly, the western suburb of the bigger Tunis.
Yes, good. So she's been teaching English for around 15 years, and she's taught a variety of levels and age groups. She's taught primary right through to adults, and she's taught a range of subjects as well. She's got American literature, business English, English for IT. But over the last few years, she's been focusing more on working with her engineering students. So we're talking young adults or adults. And she's been doing preparation for the workplace. So she's been doing verbal and non-verbal communication skills, written professional communication, and a lot of soft skills, life skills as well, which is what we're going to cover today. She's got her MA in Canadian Studies, which is very interesting, from the University of Montreal. And she's really active in the ELT community. She's active with us on our community, but also wider as well. She's an open program high performing alumni. I think that's right. Open community lead. She does lots of reviewing of resources for TESOL, a lot of things around teacher skills, EMI, and she's got lots of other interests as well. She's on the task force for Columbia University in the role of coach mentor for assisting students to transition to professional life, which is why this conversation with her today, I think, is going to be super fascinating to delve into her professional and experience as well. So you've got loads of great qualifications, loads of experience. I cannot wait to see some of the things that you've got to say. You're also a lifelong learner. Would you agree?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, great. She likes taking on new challenges. Okay, that stuff's great. But Najla, it's all about ELT time. What is your drink of choice today?
Coffee, black, regular coffee. So
Regular
here
coffee.
it's a coffee break.
Is that the Canadian influence, perhaps?
Yes, exactly.
Large black coffee, yes. I've got a lot of friends from Canada.
I just
Large,
prefer it to be freshly ground. That's
yeah.
the Tunisian.
Okay. So it's like a twist,
Yeah, exactly.
mixing the
So
two. I have got, I wanted to have mint tea to honor the Maghreb, but I unfortunately couldn't find any this morning. So I've got ginger, lemon, and honey, which sounds like I am sick, but I am not sick. It's the kind of thing you have when you're ill, isn't it?
ginger is great.
Yeah, so I will be healthy for the rest of the day at least.
Exactly.
For the guys who are with us, a few people have joined. Please do let us know, what are you guys drinking while you are joining us today? Okay, so let's get into it because we don't have a lot of time. Our topic today, skills for the future. We know the world has changed and it continues to change very rapidly. I think in the past, we could easily predict what our students' futures might look like, and we could prepare them accordingly. But I think that's becoming a lot more difficult nowadays, partly because we don't know what kinds of jobs students now are going to be doing in the future. This is a kind of common phrase. I think that makes it hard to know what kind of knowledge they're going to need to know. But I think what we can do is still figure out, predict, prepare them for certain skills, certain transferable skills, things like the ability to collaborate, the ability to problem solve, organize, show leadership qualities, these kinds of things. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is that right, Najla? We're on the right page, right?
Exactly, Nathan. Exactly. You started with a key issue here. In fact, the world is really changing fast. and so is the marketplace and the professional landscape with it. For example, the most in-demand occupations now did not exist 10 years ago. This is according even to the World Economic Forum, has been doing a lot of work on that. And likewise, now we are preparing our students for occupations that most of them don't exist yet. So it's this preparation that should be really appropriate and adequate to this rapid change, I think. So we need to focus more on soft skills, problem solving, as you said, organizational skills, emotional intelligence, all these skills that should be preparing them for that changing world.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's pitch some questions to each other and see how we can kind of draw or get deeper into this area around kind of life skills, preparing students for the future. I want to start first with the work aspect, the professional aspect of what we're preparing them for do, because we've just mentioned that. So I know you've done a lot of work around this idea of employability. This is what you've been doing with Columbia. This is what you're doing in your job a lot. In your opinion, what would you say today's students? I don't want to use the word need because I think that's a difficult word, but what might they require, or what might they even need to just kind of think about? What do we want our students to be thinking about to be fully prepared for working in this tomorrow's world that you just mentioned? Is it different from the past? How might this continue to change in the future? The thing about preparing for an unknown future is that keeps moving with us at the same time. I mean, we think about being employable. Schools originally prepared for certain types of jobs, but I think even the idea of being employable has also changed these days. You know, there's a lot of entrepreneurial work going on. People are more inclined to be self-employed. People are more inclined to have multiple professions, not just having one particular type of job. So there's a lot of questions there. I will just kind of give you some space to kind of process and say whatever you kind of feel like.
Yes, but they all make sense and they all are interconnected. So yes, great way of putting it all together. In fact, you started by asking about different ways of preparing students for preparing them. So during the 20th century, I think the idea was to prepare students and learners in the same way, to fill in the same set of positions established, most of them established clear set positions. The education system needed to be efficient, train as many learners and students as possible to be the future labor force, most of them. In the 21st century, I think this is no longer valid. The variables have changed a lot and the variables have increased too. The roles are not the same. The training is not the same for everybody. There is a need now for differentiated learning, depending on the needs, the objectives, and where we want them to go. And hence the importance of focusing on life skills. Of course, here the terminology, some people will say life skills, others will use the term soft skills. Soft in relation to hard, meaning not technical, but not soft in the meaning that they're secondary because they are really vital. So that's why some people would call them life skills. And so they are cross-disciplinary skills that will be useful on different positions in different contexts. And I'll get to the point where you mentioned the idea of employability. It's also important to know that it's even you mentioned getting beyond the idea of employability, which is a good point to raise. It's vital to know that we should get beyond the idea of employability. Otherwise, we'll be duplicating the same old model. Employability is not manufacturing between, of course, brackets, future employees to fill in positions. The point is not to train them to be employees in the same way as they used to be trained to be workers. The idea is to provide them with the tools needed for a changing world and changing roles. For example, last weekend, I took part in a training program. The aim was to train trainers and coaches to better accompany, assist, prepare students in their entrepreneurial endeavors. Of course, the point is not to make everyone start a company and be their own boss. The idea is rather to coach, monitor, prepare, assist students to go out of the box, of the traced path of study, graduate, apply for a job, occupy that position, and settle, but rather to be open minded, to be flexible, to be innovative, and adapted to that changing world. Basically, to prepare them for the unknown.
Yeah, which is a really difficult thing to do. Yeah, I mean, you made me just think of a question, but I'm actually going to hold that question for a second because I do want to delve into this idea of the necessity, perhaps, of English here in MENA. And it's different for different places. It's certainly different in, Tunisia and Morocco than it is in where I am in the Gulf. But in your own opinion, I mean, how important is learning English for a student's, I'm going to say job prospects, employability, ability to, I guess, be a part of the economic workforce in whatever unknown way that we've just mentioned. Do they need it? Is it something that's necessary to be part of that kind of global economy? I mean, I think you can be successful without learning English. I think there are very good examples around the world of very successful people who don't know any English at all. If you go to China, South America, um, here in MENA, what's your opinion? Any ideas?
Uh, well, sure. If you want to think about it, that you are right. People can still succeed in life without English. It's not really an obligation. But as a teacher of English, I don't even I don't speak about obligation to my students at all.
Okay.
I rather offer it for them as a choice. They can still obtain their degrees with getting low marks in English and move on. But the question is, do they really want that? Don't they want to be the ones choosing what to do, where to work, with whom? Because English offers that choice. I also try to teach for relevance, which makes the whole difference. They aren't obliged to study literature or long lessons of drama. They're after all engineering students. So I agree with them on certain themes. We select certain themes together in the beginning to cover, and as long as we communicate, we do speaking, reading, the usual English skills. It's fine. And once they adopt this mindset, the mindset of choosing, and the mindset of deciding on their learning, it becomes easier for them to learn. And once
Mm.
they learn and they start improving, they realize that English opens doors for them, for job offers at multinationals here in Tunisia, but also abroad, partnerships, scholarships at prestigious institutions abroad. And as I teach 3 years in a row, I start with first year engineering students and I finish with them as they graduate. I keep receiving positive feedback about that. Students come to me saying, Miss, I aced my job interview, and guess what? It was in English because the expectations in Tunisia are different here. You know that English is a third language.
Yeah.
So most people expect the interview to start with small talk in Tunisian, Arabic, and then move to French because French is the administrative language and the second language, but the tendency is more and more to use English in the workplace, and they are more and more asked for interviews in English, and once they do that, they are quite happy, and things like that. I mean, they make me proud.
Yeah, that's so nice that you get that feedback. Nice to see them go through those 3 years, and then for them to come back to you and thank you, and yeah, that must be a really nice moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said a couple of really nice points in there. I mean, this idea of it being relevant, showing them as they're going through primary or secondary, that that it is relevant in the wider world. Yes, they could do it in French, but if the social and working landscape is shifting, then they must be aware of that, I think, as well. But so yeah, you said something about opening doors. So yeah, I mean, why would you want to restrict the number of doors that are available to you? So showing them that it opens doors that may not be available to them, and they may not go through that door, but at least it's there. You know, that they might want it in the future. So I think that's some really nice points in there about English, not 100% necessary, but opens a lot of doors for us, I think. Okay, I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit because I think work, the economy, they're a small part of our lives. I mean, they consume a great deal of our lives, but they are a part of our lives. But there's other parts of our lives, other aspects of our lives that are important too. Things like
Sure.
family, friends, community, social groups, the hobbies that we enjoy doing. What kinds of skills should we be focusing on within education for this kind of other side of adult life? I'm thinking of them post-education, you know, going on, you know, to live fulfilling lives. Are they the same kinds of skills that we've been talking about? Or do you think that there's something missing within education? Do we need to focus on other things? Any ideas?
Again, great question, Nathan. You're a great interviewer. In fact, we touched on that in the previous question, but it's important to go back and highlight it. And it is the idea of relevance. Personally, relevance is my motto. And once you teach for relevance, everything else flows naturally.
Ah,
And by relevance, I mean establishing the connection between what we do in class on the one hand and the real life outside, whether it is professional, social, community life, and even the personal life. That connection will make all these aspects relate because they do relate, and we start teaching for life, not for academic success as an end in itself, because it's one aspect of success, but for success in life with all its aspects, and this success needs the basically the same skills. So we need emotional intelligence, social intelligence, resilience, empathy. Uh, um, all these skills are needed to be good learners, good active professional people, good partners, good colleagues, and good citizens.
yeah,
I mean, if you want to look at the bigger picture and think about issues like global citizenship, and it starts being prepared in the classroom and connected to the smaller community, and then to the bigger one, and to the nation, and then to the world as a bigger nation.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think if you go back 20 years ago, schooling was very academic focused. You know, if we can prepare you with everything you need to know, hopefully you'll be successful. And I think that's changed a lot. It's certainly
Yeah.
changed for me working within publishing. You know, I see a lot of those things coming through, and being embedded and integrated into what it is we're trying to do. So yeah, you can learn the vocabulary and the grammar, but we can do this as well at the same time. It can all be
Mhm.
integrated. It can all be fulfilling for the
Sure.
students. Yeah, I mean, to answer my own question, I think I said something about whether or not something is missing within education. For me, I think one of the things that's kind of missing is conflict resolution. I think I mentioned this actually in a session, I don't know, a
Hmm.
couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago. But this idea of conflict resolution, I think we need to address. Not, and I don't just mean kind of global conflict resolution, you know, what's going on within, you know, a big country or between countries. I mean, kind of everyday conflict resolution, conflict within the classroom, conflict at home, conflicts, you know, just outside, you know, things like road rage and all this kind of stuff. I think that this is an area that's really overlooked within education, this idea of conflict, and what we can do about it, you know, how we can address this, I guess, socially, communally, and that kind of stuff. That's my one thing that I think needs to be included a bit more in education. Okay, so we've got these two aspects. We've got professional life, working life, and we've got this social life on the other hand. We've established that we do require lots of skills in order to be, you know, active, conscientious global citizens. But I want to kind of bring this down to the kind of school level, kind of practical level. I want us to think a little bit about the role and relevance of educators. And I say educators because I want to take that beyond teachers. I'm thinking about administrators, principals, ministers, the cleaning staff, everybody that's involved in education. What should the responsibility of educators be when it comes to these skills? Should we be teaching all of them, some of them? Are there any of these skills that really fall outside of the remit of an educator, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, as you said, teachers slash educators should be aware of their new roles. We aren't only teachers anymore. In that traditional role or notion of teacher as knowledge provider has evolved, I think. If we look at what we are doing on an everyday basis, who among us now is providing exclusive knowledge that is not accessible elsewhere? With the access to information now, with the access to internet, to different technological tools, open educational resources, I think we should update our understanding of our roles. We are more facilitators, I think, accompanying our students, learners in their learning path towards autonomy. We are coaches, active listeners. We listen to them, we listen to their needs and try to meet them. We are mentors, trying to establish again that link between what they are doing and what they are learning and what they are going, where they are going to use it, and how they are going to use it. So I think this negotiation of our role is really important, so that we keep up to date to what we are doing.
Yeah, I agree. And there's definitely been a big shift, I think. Okay, when we talk about these kind of life skills, we're often thinking about students. So let's maybe think a little bit about teachers as well. Because when we talk about these skills, we say things like critical thinking. Students need more critical thinking. But actually, I think that sometimes, because teachers haven't traditionally been trained in these areas, it can also be interesting to think about what these life skills or soft skills or global skills mean for teachers themselves. So I guess I'm trying to think of a good question. I guess, how can teachers ensure that their skills remain relevant for 21st century teaching or 21st century education? Do you think there's enough support for teachers when it comes to developing these types of skills? What are your kind of thoughts on that?
There is a lot of effort on teachers themselves to go and look for different professional trainings. It's very important to upskill and follow the trends now. A lot of effort is being done, but also I think there is also the need for more assistance from administration, from organizations, bigger institutions to back up that effort. Because I think in order to be teachers of the 21st century, we need to teach for the 21st century. What we are doing right now is that, of course, not all, but what's happening in many contexts is that we are people with the 20th century mindset, belonging to the 20th century, using tools of the 19th century sometimes, and teaching learners of the 21st century. And this needs absolutely to change. And in order to change that, we need to get closer to our learners, listen to them. And here come, as you said, we are teaching soft skills, but we need to apply them ourselves and we need to have them ourselves. So we need to be active listeners. We need to be lifelong learners. We need to be always learning, unlearning, relearning, and it's important. I think it's very important to make that shift and go to meet them. Go to meet the learners, because they are partners in this.
Yeah, and starting kind of with the starting from the perspective of the learners, so important, as you said. Like, they're not just 20 students in your class. I've got these objectives. We'll pass this test. Next batch, like you said, that's that kind of 19th century kind of factory model of education. And it's difficult, I think, because in certain contexts, it is difficult. There are very rural schools or educational contexts here in MENA that we need to take, account of. There's still probably blackboard work going on, very low tech, very disconnected communities. But yeah, I think generally, in terms of training, there's a lot more accessibility for teachers. The internet's definitely helped. I think in some ways the pandemic has actually helped in this respect.
Sure.
I think that publishers have been doing more to connect with teachers, making things available. There's more courses. People are finding out about these things much easier, I think. People are getting involved in different communities and that they might not have before. So I think that's been a positive aspect of it. Okay, we're running out of time. One last question. If you were meeting a young, new, qualified teacher, what advice would you give them around this area, life skills and training?
Okay. I would say I love what you do, and you'll never feel that you're working. You'll be happy doing what you love. Otherwise, you would feel that it's very tiring path, because it can be. Uh, Here, I'd like to mention one of your guests, Anna Hasper.
Yeah.
I used to refer to myself, as you started, by saying a lifelong learner, until I read the definition of how Anna Hasper defines herself. And she says, I am a self-confessed learning addict. And I really love it. So I'll start using it.
Yeah,
So to be
nice.
a good teacher, you really definitely need to be a learning addict.
Yeah, you do. Anna's got some great quotes. I always love Anna's quotes.
Uh-huh.
And this is a good one. Yeah, like I mentioned, that you were a lifelong learner at the beginning, but this shift to this kind of learning active. You're right. Teaching is definitely not for everybody. Sometimes, actually, I remember a little while ago, I had a conversation with Anna actually about a question. The question I was thinking about earlier in your first answer, which is this concept of, or even just the terminology, is teacher still an appropriate term? And in fact, I'm going to actually pitch this onto the social media platforms, perhaps as a question later. Do we need to update it? You used lots of other terms: facilitators, motivators, coaches. Do we need to move beyond the idea? And I pitched this to Anna actually over a coffee a few weeks ago, and it was really interesting to see her response. So yeah, I'm going to pitch that onto social media, because I don't know. I'm conflicted about whether or not the term teacher is still an appropriate term if this shift has happened. Are we just teachers anymore, or are we something more? Do we need to come up with a new term? I don't know. Okay.
We have really same concerns here. I've had an idea of I don't know what yet, a webinar, workshop, and I would like to speak about stop teaching. My understanding of it is about English, because I will not speak about other aspects that I don't really grasp. But my idea is to call it stop teaching English. And once you stop teaching English, students will start loving it. Because
Oh,
English I mean, once you develop that love for that language, you really see it completely differently. And answering again, going back, I know we are running out of time. Just finish on that. Going to the previous question of how do you make your students love it? I tell them, stop thinking that it's not your language. Arabic is my language, French is my language, and English is my language in its own way. And once you appropriate that, you start developing a completely different attitude to it. Just stop teaching it. Do things in it. Sing in it. Watch things. Speak, discuss, chat, have friends, and you'll love it.
yeah. Wow, that's such a nice way to kind of wrap everything up at the end. Okay, great. So we've come to an end. We've run out of time. I think if we were to suggest any tips based on the discussion that we'd had, I mean, one for me would be that these skills definitely can be learned. They're definitely learnable skills. They should be made explicit. They need to be practiced. We can't just expect them to happen in the background. And students, I think this, you already mentioned this, they need to reflect upon them. They need to know what it is that they're learning in terms of life skills. And again, that explicit part brings on that. That's one tip that I would say. I would also, perhaps another tip that I might give would be start as young as possible. I think a mistake that education has made in the past is that we've waited until they get to college or university to start focusing on life skills. And actually, and I did this yesterday in the project session, we can start them step by step, simplify it, make them explicit when they're younger. And then when they become teens and they become adults, they've got a bigger foundation that they can then build upon, I think. So they're my 2 tips: make explicit and practice them, and start as young as possible. Do you have any other tips you want to add before we finish?
Sure, I agree with that. Great tips. I'll add just in relation to the bigger relation between, a teacher, educator, whatever you want to call it, and learner. See it as a partnership, as a contract to be negotiated and renegotiated every time, to be more efficient and to reach where you want to go, and stop seeing it as just provider of knowledge, a vertical relationship. Just more of a partnership in an educational contract.
Yeah, nice. And then you start to see your students in a different way, I think. It's not teacher-student relationship. It's
Sure.
We're all in this together type of relationship. Super nice. Okay, good. So my cup of tea has come to an end. So I guess today's podcast has also
Now
come
it's
to
my
an end.
coffee.
Your coffee has come to an end as well. Great.
Yeah.
We're doing loads of things on this at Macmillan Education, obviously. So connect with us. Give us your feedback. Get involved with the Insights Index program and give your feedback on life skills and how you use them through that. If you want more information about using life skills with your students, go to places like One Stop English, our partner website, or join the Macmillan MENA PD Academy community as well. From me, I'd like to thank you very, very much, Najla, for joining me this afternoon, and for your wonderful insights on this whole topic. I will post this onto the website so people can go and watch it themselves.
Sure.
And if they wish, they can ask questions and we can work together to answer them.
Thank you, Nathan, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, really.
Yeah,
It was really nice.
It was my pleasure, my privilege, and my honor to have you with us on the podcast. But for now, this is Najla, and I am Nathan, and we wish you all a very good day. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, Najla.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.